You're listening to Power Athlete Radio, a podcast dedicated to empowering your performance every damn day. Join former NFL pro and Power Athlete founder John Wellborn as he dissects the greatest minds in strength, conditioning, and more. So whether your goal is to be the hammer, destroy mediocrity, or simply move the dirt, you've come to the right place. Now with the warm-up done, let the gains begin.
Hey, Power Athlete Nation. I want you guys to dig in on this next one. We have a very special guest, Mr. Harry Shaw. So for those of you guys that don't know, Harry has been not only an incredible friend of Power Athlete, but of me and my family, and somebody when we moved to Austin, Texas, was one of the first persons to reach out and, bring us a welcome to Texas basket, and has just been an invaluable part of the team, and count him as one of my close friends. This is a long time coming, and kind of embarrassing wise, I'm kind of blown away that we haven't had Harry on the podcast before this, but like in true style, he did an incredible job. Sat down, and a little bit of backstory, Harry comes over and we have these conversations pretty regularly, and he's just not only has a huge heart, loves the brand, very high level Krav Maga black belt, does jits, been into fighting, moved from Mexico to play basketball here in the U.S., and not only is a business owner, runs CrossFit Lakeway, Boom Fitness, but, husband, father, and just a incredible person. And I'm blessed to call him a friend. So glad that we could finally get him here on Power Athlete Radio. Mr. Harry Shaw, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me. It's interesting because I was talking to I'm a very vanilla guy. My parents are still married. They love each other. My sister and I grew up in a great home. We really didn't have any demons or anything like that. The only thing that I can think of that I can reproach them is that there was a level of scarcity, right? We can't afford that, or you can't go here, or.
I grew up in the exact same. I think it's just that generation that was like, because your parents are how old?
My dad's 77, my mom's 70.
So that's kind of like for us, like my dad was a child of the Depression. Mm-hmm. He was born kind of in that like Depression thing, and World War II pulled him out. And I think that like growing up with that scarcity, like somebody's like, your job's going to go away, everything's going to go away, and you have to be able to do more with less. Mm-hmm. That scarcity mindset just kind of permeates for people.
Yeah, and talking to Liz, I'm going, you always have this thing hanging up on, oh, you can't afford it, so you can't do this. And you remember my Suburban? Yeah. It was like a hoopty drive.
Yeah.
We got it new, but we drove it for like 12, 13 years.
Yeah, you drove the wheels off that motherfucker.
It was a good car. But it was always in the back of my head going, no, you can't afford it. No, don't do it. Why are you spending money on this? Which just sounds familiar. But one of the things I want to do is I want to ask for stuff. And I was like, I'm going to ask John if I can be in the podcast. We always have great conversations, and I've never been in it. And I just love everything that you've built. And it's been so influential, not only in my business, but my life. And it's kind of evolved, it's fun to see people really do what they're saying they're doing. It's very simple. Be consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the age old move the dirt is about showing up every day, and you don't have to fucking kill it every single day, as long as you're consistently in the fight. And I think about that today, even for training, how much did I want to get done today? I had about an hour, got as much done as I needed to get done. And even though I left some on the table, I was like, I think I'm going to do something else for training today.
Well, and testament to you is that I can count with like my hand how many people are the same people since when I met them. And
it's kind of boring, isn't it?
No, but it's not boring, man. It's just, it's consistency, and it's actually very refreshing because that means you're authentic.
Yeah.
If you're authentic, you're not changing. You're not looking to be chameleon and adapting into whatever's coming at you.
I did that in my 20s. Yeah. I had this realization that like the amount of time like between like 18 and 24, you grow so much. And then like 24 to like 28 to 30 was pretty big growth. And then after the age of 30, I think like a lot of the characteristics have kind of like kind of set in stone a little bit. And if I find people that are making huge turns in their 30s and 40s, I always get a little bit nervous. Like people ask me, hey, what about like a midlife crisis? I'm like, oh no, I had that early life crisis when I was in my 20s, when I was absolutely fucking insane. I also think that, playing football, even like the media today is so much bigger than when I played, X amount of years ago. But just like the media attention, the focus, the idea that, I'm the best in the world at what I'm doing, this bravado, I'm young, I have cash. I mean, all of these things go into play and feed your ego, and whether or not you want to believe it, they do.
Right.
And you tend to just be, a little bit reckless, a little bit fast, and maybe don't make the best decisions. And then all of a sudden you turn 30, and towards the end of it, you become a father, and I got married and had a lot more stability after that. I kind of have actually let it creep into my mind. What if I'd had that level of stability? Like I'd been married and had kids and met Kate and whatever earlier on, and was married in my NFL career, I probably would have played longer. Because I wouldn't have been chasing my fucking tail all over the planet.
But then the stories would not be the
same.
No,
but I would not have as many good stories, which, I've told of a decent amount of them over, but there's a lot that I haven't. And people be like, tell us more. But it was kind of a full circle thing, man. As I was sitting, I did a podcast with Arash last week. And we kind of just did a Q&A, and it was funny.
He looks so young. I love that guy.
He looks so young and what?
You post is like, it's been 2 years. I'm like, he was so young when he started.
Yeah, he's grown so much in 2 years. But to see like, and especially like Victor and Philippe came in yesterday to train, and we were kind of going over like what the next, ADCC 2024 is going to be in August. So we're sitting here in mid-March. We got August, and they have like probably the next 2 months is the closest they're ever going to have to like an off season. So like looking at like March to April, April to May, that like mid-May is really like mid-May, June is when like the camp will start for ADCC. Then it'll be June, July, August. Yeah. So being like, wow, we actually have an off season. And what
would you tell them to not roll that much? Or? Part of that off-season template?
There's a great analogy that I think it was Hoyler Gracie, or like one of the Gracies had, about a jiu-jitsu is like a pot of water. And he's like, you can choose the temperature of your jiu-jitsu.
Right.
So if you keep it warm and you roll every day and your water is warm, it's really easy to turn the gas up and get it hot. Yeah. Now, if you don't roll very often, you let your water get cold, then you have to constantly be starting the fire, getting here and getting everything positioned, and hopefully it comes up to temperature and getting it just right. Whereas if you just keep the flame stoked a little bit and you keep the water warm at a constant, then if you need to like ramp it up, it's already warm. So jiu-jitsu is like water. So I think,
and you have to have good partners as well, because they need to know how to control that temperature as well.
So for those guys, I think we interrupt this episode with a shameless self-promotion. Are you pushing through performance roadblocks caused by pain or janky movement mechanics? Knock the rust off with our movement health courses, used by thousands of athletes worldwide, from average Joes to MVPs. Our courses give you the tools to assess and fix yourself so you can get back to break-in necks and cash in checks. Not convinced? Get a taste of how our courses can help you by enrolling in a free sample today. Head to powerathletehq.com and search courses from the menu. Now back to the show. It's what they do. Like whether or not they train multiple times a day, 3 times a day, or once a day, or whatever it looks like. I still think they have to do it. And what's good is because they're constantly teaching class.
Right.
That keeps them very, very current. Like, next in April, Victor's going for a week to Costa Rica to teach a camp. And he'll go down there and it'll be like a little vacation, but he'll teach jiu-jitsu. And, so those guys never lack an opportunity to roll and just do what they do. Yeah. But the training piece is going to be interesting just because I brought in some fun stuff. Like I got force plates.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So the guys had Hawkins Dynamics and his force plates for me to use with them. We're going to do a bunch of lactate testing, and I'm going to get some EWAT. So we're going to do some EWAT stuff.
Wow.
And so I'm going to really just try to really push the conditioning for these guys, and then also take them into like a deeper version, of a power athlete kind of blended triphasic. We're going to really focus on muscle contractions. I want to, focus on some accentuated negatives and isometrics, and just some of the things that we've tapped on, but haven't really dove in 100%.
That's all.
So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
But we're in this kind of off season, so I was kind of doing the notes today and kind of seeing what I wanted to do with it. So it's going to be fun. I mean, and what's cool is they're young kids. Yeah. So young to us, because they're not young, but they're fucking young kids to us.
You're still below 50. I mean, we're almost there though. Yeah. The fifth level.
So it's, but I found, and I'm sure just like for you, that, when you're around, younger guys and get to live vicariously through them, and some of the stories, Victor was telling me he went out to some, there's some super exclusive sushi place he took his girl for her birthday that I guess Joe Rogan goes to, and there's only 6 tables in there, and he's sitting in there, and the bill comes, and he's like, oh, it's a lot of money. Well, he's good. I was like, good.
Was it good?
He said it was great. It was a great experience, but everybody in there was like, Joe Rogan, and then it was jiu-jitsu, and it was Joe Rogan podcast jiu-jitsu and this and sushi, and he's like, these guys are in there all talking about, yeah, I train jiu-jitsu, and they didn't even ask Victor anything. So these guys how much jiu-jitsu do they really train if they don't know who Victor Hugo is?
Yeah.
This episode of Power Athlete Radio is powered by Train Heroic, the most immersive strength training app experience on the market. We've built an online training business by partnering with Train Heroic to deliver all of our world-class training programs like Jack Street, Hammer, Field Strong, and Grindstone. To learn which Power Athlete training program best suits your goals, head to powerathletehq.com/training. And if you're a coach looking to build a business with the best training tech in the business, head to trainheroic.com/powerathletehq. And now back to the show.
That's insane, man. No, we're talking about consistency.
Yeah.
And I think that, you're talking about jiu-jitsu and all this driving later. I find it exciting and motivating to listen to you tap into all this stuff, because through your consistency, you're still open enough to go, hey, what's coming into this? How can I apply this? And even though, people are like, oh, this is so different. It's not. It's the same.
It's still movement.
Principle-based system.
Yeah.
And that's always so valuable. I always remember, I don't know if you've changed your description. And I think there was a point when back 10 years ago, you said, a simple man. I'm a simple man.
Yeah.
And that always stuck with me, because I'm the same way. I want peace.
Do you know where that comes from?
Where?
So there's a story behind it. It's just like everything has a story.
Right.
Nothing is random. Nothing is just randomly thrown out. But many, many years ago, my good friend, Ted Ritchie, aka Ted Bundy, the lady killer. He and RC were two of my good friends in Philly. They helped me build my first bike. And so El Bundamente, he has many nicknames. We load up the bikes and we go to Daytona Bike Week. And so we go down. We were down there meeting Turley, and at the time Turley was an investor in Metairie Customs, which is a custom bike company. So we go down there to go ride with those guys, and they were in a big bike show with Bikers Ball and Billy Lane and all these guys that were Choppers Incorporated and all these kind of famous chopper dudes. So we go down there and we're hanging out with all these guys. There was a bar just north of Daytona called Peggy's Place. So we get on the bikes, we blast up to this place. I think it was in Ormond Beach, and we pull in, and on the marquee, it just said Van Zandt Band. So we pull in, and there was 10 drunk bikers on a Tuesday. And, there was a stage. We went out back, and there's picnic tables. There's a stage, and on the side of the stage, there's a trailer where they have a tattoo parlor, and they're tattooing people. Right. And we walk in, we get beers, we sit down, and, it's basically, I think it's Ronnie Van Zandt or whatever, the brother of, Leonard Skinner, who passed away. It was him doing his warm-up show because the next night they were playing on the beach in Daytona. So I think maybe one of the original members was there. I don't remember. But, all these drunk bikers are like, play some, Skinner. And so he's playing the music, and he comes out and he starts playing Simple Man. And, I'd heard the song a million times, but I'd never actually ever heard the lyrics.
To it. Yeah.
So as I'm sitting there with 6 drunk bikers drinking beers in Daytona Beach, and he's on stage, I mean, literally where that wall is. And I sat there and I listened to the lyrics of Simple Man. And at that point, that was like a huge, like one of those transcendental moments when, you start listening to the lyrics and you're like, I've been, adding so much complexity in my life, running here, running here. And, don't lust for the rich man's gold. I mean, all these things like just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And I realized that I was anything but simple. I had created this chaos and this level of just confusion intentionally.
Distractions.
Well, it was distracting me from some like really simple facts. I think what happened was when I started playing football, I didn't, I got hurt really quickly. My first game, I come out and I start like I'm on top of the world. I'm starting as a rookie in the NFL, first game of my NFL career, and I'm starting, and I rupture my patellar tendon, and my career's finished. The doctor, takes me in, and at halftime he comes in and he goes, we've never had anybody come back from this injury. This is the end of your career. And I like look over and I see a tear stream down my dad's face. Right. And I was like, fuck, dude, this is the end of it. And like in those dark moments, after that, I had this like realization where I'm like, this will not be my defining moment. I will not go quiet into this gentle night, know? So rage against the dying of light. And so I pull out all the stops, do everything I have to do, come back, start 16 games that next year. And the hilarious part was there was a defensive end, I forget his name, for the New Orleans Saints, who I think had a similar injury, like ruptured, did something to his knee. Mid-season, a little bit earlier than me that same year. He came back and played in like 3 games, and they gave him comeback player of the year. And I had the same, much worse injury, came back and started 16 games that next year. And, then I realized that there's a lot of, there's many second-class citizens in the NFL. And, because of my skin color and just the fact that I was, hurt as a rookie. And in my second year, I wasn't going to get any of these awards. But I realized pretty early on, like, hey, you know what? This can be taken from you very quickly. And so I think the way that I emotionally dealt with that was by never really admitting that I'd like to play. Oh yeah, it's something I do. And I was very nonchalant about it, and I trained and I did all these things, but I was afraid to admit to myself and those people around me how much I loved to play. Right. And I like all the pieces of it. Like there was some bullshit that I didn't like. I didn't like shitty meals. I didn't like shitty travel, the politics and whatever. But like at its core, like being able to work and do that and be on the field and like train and like all the ancillary stuff. And I, as great as an experience I had playing for the Chiefs, I got into a weird contract dispute in Philly, got traded. I should have just kept my fucking mouth shut. And because it was a better situation. We won a ton of games. The food was amazing. Andy Reid took care of the players. And even though we got a little toxic, I should have been more adult about it and realized this is a business. All right. Like there's a way to win this thing, which is through a war of attrition, not fucking trying to blow it all up. So that was youth and stupidity and bravado and a lot of things. And I think at that moment, and then I go to Kansas City, I come in to start and they kind of fucked me on my deal too. But I banged up my knee pretty good. And I think I was always playing on this borrowed time. Like how much longer is this going to last? How much longer am I going to do this? And I think the way that I like emotionally was okay with it ending was if I didn't really like it. Right. And even though I did, and I fucking lived and died for it, it was just easy to be like, it's just what I do. It doesn't define me. Instead of being like, I fucking love this. This is who I am. And, so then I get hurt in my 10th year and I come home, have surgery, CrossFit hits me up, and I go out and I start teaching all these seminars and CrossFit football and the whole deal. Yeah. Teams are calling for me to go work out. And I had this like realization where I was like, I missed my 10th year due to injury. Now I'm going to go in my 11th year. Like everybody was like offering me league minimum. It wasn't like somebody was going to pay me fucking millions of dollars. They were like, come in for a workout. And I'm like, is there a contract? No, we want to see what you can do. And I was like, fuck you.
There's a bunch of film you can watch.
Yeah. Like, dude, I got 10 years. I started, in year 9, I started 16 games. Yeah. And then I go in year 10, hurt my knee. And the surgeon I went to was too aggressive. So I had too much bleeding and too much inflammation and had to go get a second surgery by Dr. Stedman. And he cleaned it all up. And then within 6 weeks, I was fine. So if I'd seen steady out the gate, it would have been a different story, but I had all this swelling. I couldn't get my knee, and nothing was working. So then all of a sudden I see him, and as I started kind of training with this idea, nothing was working well. And actually that's what led me to Craig Bueller. And then I go see Dr. Bueller, and I remember he puts his hands on me. He's like, you're going to be fine. And I like had this like realization where I was like, shit, if I had met Bueller before and this, you start doing this crazy shit in your head. But I think what happened was because I was so afraid to admit that I liked it, because what if it got taken from me? Could I emotionally deal with that?
Right.
And I was young and I didn't have the emotional capacity to be able to say, you know what, like I really love that. I mean, think about having children, right? And not that I'm going to equate playing football to having children, because it's way different. But like, you know, you have your kids and then people lose children. Like the thing with like, you know, with Wade's Army that we've done. You know, here's these twins and you know, Wade is taken, and you know, I know his sister. She's grown. She's a girl now. I mean, she's a woman. So I mean, the ability to like have something and invest so much time and effort, and like admit that you really enjoy and you love this, and this is your identity, and this is who you are, and then to have it taken from you, not voluntarily walk away, but just like somebody, like not everybody gets to be. You know, I always joke, not everybody gets to be Peyton Manning and Tony Gonzalez and Jason Kelsey for that deal where they all of a sudden the teams are like, no, we'll pay you millions of dollars to stay. And you're like, no, I'm going to go. I just got a $200 million, contract to do my fucking podcast. Yeah. Right. I mean, dude, these guys like, I mean, Peyton Manning, you know, neck is messed up, comes back, wins a Super Bowl, rides away, you know, to his 75 Papa John's. I mean, Tony, you know, I mean, probably in a yacht somewhere in the Mediterranean with his wife. I mean, his kids, and having a great time. You know,
or owning an island.
With his best friend Jeff Bezos. Yeah. So I mean, it's I think like the youth of that, and then also here's another one. Like, you know, like my brothers and my dad, always, you know, my best friends in the world. But like never being able to explain that to them, and then them not having the wherewithal to be like, hey, dude, like, why are you so nonchalant about this shit? Like, I know you really like this. How come you don't? Like, and kind of like forcing me to talk through it a little bit. And I think what happens, it's kind of like in, do you remember in elementary school, and maybe you don't, like, as I know you grew up in Mexico, maybe it's the same, but do you remember all these kids being like, well, you know, I got shitty grades, but it's because I didn't try.
Yeah.
Right. I remember like all these kids always telling me, like, you know, we get our report cards and they'd be like, whatever, nerd, you tried hard. That's why you got good grades. Yeah. If I tried hard, I get good grades. And I'd be like, okay, why wouldn't you try? Right. If I'm here, I'm going to try. I'm just not going to sit here and use an excuse. So everything I've done, like I might not get an A, but I'm still going to try my hardest. You know, like I don't understand like going and not putting in the effort. Right. If I physically have to be there, I'm going to put the effort in.
Do you think that not only that, I mean, you were fearful of having taken it away, but do you feel like it was more of a, I'm having so much fun, I don't want people to be jealous of me. Like, I won't pretend it's just a job for me, so they don't think that I'm in. Because when I met you, and this is funny because I know some people, you know, but I've never seen, like I see you and I don't think, oh, he played in the NFL. It's always kind of like a batch. Oh, here you go. You're like, you haven't met me. I haven't played in the NFL for, how long have you been out? Like 12 years now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're not that guy anymore. And I never saw you as that guy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, he's John Wellborn. Yeah. And now he's coaching me this and teaching me about strength and conditioning. But it was not like when I met Mark, I was like, okay, great. He's the Undertaker. Yeah. Great.
He's legitimately
I'm
the
like,
Undertaker.
I can care less. I don't even talk, like, I don't talk about wrestling with him. I talk about fighting and life and fatherhood, and it's an extra layer that people get hung up on. You know?
Well, so, it's like the thin candy shell. Yeah. You know, around the peanut M&M, right? So the thin candy shell that people see, and part of it, I don't know. I sometimes think like, you know, youth is wasted on the young, right? 100%. But like I also had this weird, people have probably heard me say it on the podcast, where I didn't want to be one of those guys that was just treading on what I did in my 20s and early 30s for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And like I kind of had this idea that I was, you know, a Renaissance man. I'm going to reestablish myself. I'm going to create something new. I'm going to go in a new direction, and I'm going to try to prove. And thinking back, like so in that 10th year, contract ends with Kansas City Chiefs, and a bunch of teams were calling me. I went out to Baltimore because John Harbaugh was there, and I played for John. He was our special teams coach at the Eagles, and we were always good friends, like really, really tight. And so I was stoked when they called me, and I went out there. Ozzie Smith, who was their GM, was a complete fucking cockface. We go in, work out, and he's like, dude, we're going to get a deal done. You're going to sign with us. It's great. He comes in and offers me like league minimum and no signing bonus, nothing. Like 1 year deal, no incentives, literally offered me like the worst fucking deal. And I like went back to Harbaugh and I was like, yo, I fucking brought my shit. I want to sign. And this guy's offering me no money, league minimum, and no incentives. And I'm going to come in and fucking start for you.
Right.
And he was like, so then he like goes back and comes back. If maybe we can get some. And I'm like, dude, I'm fucking going home. And we got into it as I was like, give me a return plan ticket. I'm not fucking signing. He goes, you're on the fucking street. You'll never make 6 figures in your life. This is the best money you're ever going to make. You're never going to make 6 figures ever. You're going to be fucking sweeping floors. And I was like, all right, motherfucker. And so that first year out, when I retired across the football, we ended up making good 6 figures.
Yeah.
So it was, like it made me realize how quickly people forget who you are. And more importantly, they'll say whatever they can. It was just shitty business. And at the time the players didn't have an avenue to be able to fucking out shit pieces of shit like that. Now in social media, they would have been like,
it's like talking to Boss when he told the story about that guy coming out of his car in front of his house. Have you heard of that story?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And he was telling me the story, and I'm like, people forget who he is because he's not out there. He's not fighting anymore. He's seen a couple of movies, and they don't understand the level of like, don't fuck with that guy.
Dude, first of all, there are probably like 6 people on the planet that like that you would. Like I could tell you the 6 people on the planet that you would not want to run into in a bar. Yeah. Boss Rutan's 5 of them.
Oh yeah.
like bing, bong, boom. And I thank you for introducing me to Boss, but I had one of the most amazing adventures with Boss. Dude, dude, Boss and Victor and me travel. So Boss, Victor, and I don't want my grammar to look
I
don't want people to let me negative comments on YouTube for my grammar. Go to Salt Lake City to go see Dr. Bueller. So it's 3 days of like, going to the gym, working out, getting coffee, going here, listening to Boss, who I have good stories. Boss's stories eclipse my stories. Yeah. Boss's, I got the best stories. And to the point where I was like downloading like 90s, 90s trance and like house music from Amsterdam. And I put it in the car and all of a sudden it was like, and like Boss is the best. But he is, he's a real deal.
Yeah. He's
and, just like, I was very fortunate to do my job, I believe. And I know because, if I was a fraud, people would have told me by now. Yeah. But, you do the game well, you play as you should. And hopefully the legacy that you leave behind is one of, respect and that, hey, that guy was good. He did it the way he was supposed to.
Yeah.
And I think like that's allowed me to have a little piece. I'm never going to go to the Hall of Fame, but I was fortunate to fucking murder a lot of dudes that are in there. So, and I'm stoked when I see guys that are good young players and like seeing like what, Travis Kelce and his brother have created with their podcast and all the success they've had and how Dayton Taylor Swift has put them into the stratosphere and now iHeartRadio, the same.
Oh my God, dude.
Fucking happy for them.
I know, but I'm the same time.
But you know what? Like, I think in life you can either be a little bit jealous, which is okay.
Right.
Be like, fuck, man, that's great. I wish, right?
Right.
But then also, having the wherewithal to be like, this guy's crushed it. They hit it at just the right time. And I could not be more proud that 2 dipshit brothers from Ohio who, played it, not even a fucking, top 10 school, got into this thing, late round draft picks and have grown into these players and had these epic careers and could not be more happy for them. Yeah. And, and those guys will get a chance to go to the Hall of Fame, which would be even more dope for them. Who would have thunk? So legacy and whatever, but I think I had a lot of chips on my shoulder. When I retired, feeling like I still had good football in me. Why are they treating me like this? And then, you know what? If you're going to treat me poorly, I'm going to go do something else, right? I'm not going to fucking be your little bitch. And so I decided and said, all right, you know what? I'm going to make a fucking right turn. I'm going to go all in on this CrossFit football thing. And at the time, I wasn't a strength coach, and I still don't view myself as a strength coach. I view myself more, and it's funny because the Brazilians call me coach, and I'm always like, ugh.
It's better than sensei.
No, I don't want to be sensei. They call me like senpai, or they could just call me John.
Yeah.
Call me
John.
Yeah. So,
Hey, coach.
but then, like everything, when I make the decision, I go deep, and I want to like go deep into it, and I become obsessed with all of the pieces. Yeah. And I there was always this little splinter in my mind about fostering and developing athleticism that I really have staked my life, and really just from the time I was a kid, that athleticism is something that can be attained if you understand the pieces. Now, there's certain people that God just puts their hand on them and they become athletes.
But see, this is what I was telling you. This is so cool to see you, not only, at this stage of your life, applying all the stuff you believe in on a different level. Like when you talked about putting bedrock into how you missed a few planes and the pronation, supination of the ankles and the hip and all this stuff, it's exciting because, think about progression of a power athlete. You started being the hammer. Now you're being the vice grip, apply pressure, you know? And I always tell you, you can't paint a house with a hammer. Yeah. You have to build that tool belt around it so you can pass it along to everybody.
Well, there's always been, it's a firm misconception in the world that athleticism is like beauty, right? Like either some people are beautiful or they're not. And the Kardashians are a good indicator that you're not ugly, you're just poor.
Yes.
Right? Like
clearly.
I think the Kardashians are, I call them cultural sodomites. They've ass-fucked this society.
Yeah, no shit.
Joe Rogan has a great bit where he's like, isn't anybody nervous? We don't know how these people made their money and they're all rich.
Yeah.
But I mean, the two younger sisters, I think that are Jenners, like the one girl's a supermodel and the other girl who was extremely homely, and whatever they did to her, I mean, they must have fucking sacrificed some animals, like made a deal with the devil, because the girl is like a bombshell now. But if you see the before and afters, and like, I'd love the line, like, remember, you're not ugly, you're just poor, right? But same with athleticism, right? There's certain people, like girl I dated in the NFL, girl Erin Belger, she ran track at Cal. She ran the 800 meters. I remember we were in San Diego. We were going to a Padres game, and she stepped off the curb, put her foot in the ground, and sprinted across with such effort that the lady next to me was like, wow. That was like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Did you see the way that girl moved? This old lady said this to me, and I was like, yes. Yeah. She just was such an extremely gifted athlete that everything she did looked effortless.
Right.
There was a lot of times where it looked bad, but this idea of mastery and attention to detail, and it's not nearly as funny now. I used to call myself an autistic monkey, where I could like hyper focus on something and mimic. Where if I could see you do it on film or in person, being like, hey, take this step, I can do this step. So it's why with jujitsu, like watching, like, hey, watch and do this and mimic. You just give me enough opportunity, I'll master it. So I took this same approach to athleticism. And as we started talking about X, Y, and Z axis and movements through 3 planes of motion and all the stuff you see with, with the blueprint of athleticism, I had this theory that if we can teach X, Y, and Z, push, pull, vertical, horizontal, transverse, sagittal and frontal planes, and look at these in different ways, prone and supine, the whole deal. We can teach these movements and teach people to be strong, and then start putting them together into that chunking model, which, you think about, you teach kids their A, B's, and C's, and then the A's and the B's become words, and words become sentences, sentences become paragraphs, paragraphs become pages, and pages become books. But you've heard that from the old CrossFit football. So, somewhere we get into the idea of learning and chunking. That piece is so fundamental. And then realizing and watching people become more athletic versions of themselves and seeing it happen in real time by like understanding the pieces, teaching the pieces, then reassembling the pieces, and then finding different combinations to challenge posture and position while you move through space. Like you can foster and develop athleticism. And like that moment when we defined athleticism, I remember, when Glassman hit me up about helping them develop their technology and how to train athletes. And when then I asked what's CrossFit's technology, and they're like, it's fitness. Yeah. Right, the increased work capacity, broad time motor domains, the constantly varied movements performed. I can't remember what the other one is.
At high intensity.
Yeah, high. So thinking about what is power athletes technology, and then realizing that fostering developing athleticism was our technology, and discussing it and looking at it in ways that other people aren't, understanding foot position, and then, meeting people like Cal Dietz, where, 99.9% of the world's contacts with feet. And what I thought were more like hip and knee issues and weakness within the trunk were just manifesting with weak feet. So then we figured out how to fix weak feet and all the other things we went into, and then understanding change of direction, vertical toes forward, big toe on the ground, squeeze the glute, squeeze, all of this like internal bracing, understanding the dead bug is a motion for I mean, all of this stuff like that we were doing with all these pieces, all of a sudden it was like the Matrix, like put it all together. And I was like looking around, I'm like, you guys can see this, right?
No, that's I'm glad you say that. It's a great segue because people can't see it. I had a conversation about Krav Maga principle-based system, right? And we talk about the Legos is the system. So you can, with the same Legos, build something. And it's a principle-based system. So you can manipulate going from a knife attack to a pistol to this principle-based system. You can build with the same Legos. There's people that are stuck on just building one thing with those Legos. They can only see that because they're being told. They don't even understand that. And we see that through our community of coaches, right? People that are still stuck in certain things that they never play around or have the questions or have the balls to ask, hey, why are we doing this?
Well, do you know why? This is so in anticipation of, and I did not go to Costa Rica to go on the ayahuasca journey with Shanji like I was supposed to. That ended up getting curved ball. I really think Mother Nature with the deal that happened with my wife, like it just didn't happen. Yeah. Shanji has come back.
A coffee connoisseur, I heard.
Coffee connoisseur, but completely different. Like his journey with Mother Ayahuasca has really changed him for the better, and I really love it, and I support it.
Good.
So, but in anticipation of this journey, like I'm not one to like, hey, we're just going to like strap on parachutes and jump in. I want to know where we're jumping. Hey, like I'm going to ask you enough questions.
Right.
So I went in, I read that Immortality Key, and I started reading a lot about like the journey and like, like how these plant-based medicines fit within like kind of like the story of humanity. Right. Like think about like,
of course.
Terrence McKenna's stoned ape theory.
Yes.
How in the world did our brains go from here to here? And the only thing that they found that allow these synapses and wiring to wire in different ways is psilocybin. So then they think like, did these monkeys consume like thousands of pounds of this over millions of years? I mean, could that? I mean, it's a good theory, but in that discussion, especially when I got into the Mortality Key, there's really two interesting sects of religion. There's interpretives and there's fundamentalists. So there's people that are like, believe that the Bible, the story of like, Jesus walked on water. Did he really walk on water, or was that a ceremony that they had where he crossed a bridge? Right? Did he really feed, with like, what was it, the fishes and loaves? And like, if you read back, like fishes and loaves were actually designations for helpers. So there's all these like historical things. Like if you believe, did the Bible really happen? And there's people that believe word for word that the Bible happened in that book, even though there's not a single piece of historical accuracy that can be found within it. And I'm saying that not that I've done the work. I'm just telling you that, like people have gone back and they've tried to like historically accurate this thing. Was there a person that did this? Probably could have been, there's a lot of questions, but there's people that believe fundamentally that this book and every word of it is true to the point where, the earth is 6,000 years old, and that, there was an incredible man who was the, son of God in this. And then there's other people that look at it and be like, I read this for the stories. Could it be that, love thy fellow man and all these pieces that Jesus taught? Could it just be that he's a metaphor for Buddha, or, am I learning something? Is this allowing me to be a better version of myself? So the fundamentalist versus the, interpretive, let's say. Same in strength conditioning.
Oh yeah.
Same in like what you're talking about with, with Krav and jiu-jitsu and, especially in strength conditioning, even more so.
Oh my God. Dude.
Because there's people that believe that like on the seventh day, this system was created and this is the only way to do this. And like, there's not anything else. And the detour that I made, because I'm not a fundamentalist, is based on performance. So we're going to create a performance-based system that allows you to perform. What allows you to perform? Well, those are the pieces that we have to find. Now we have a set of, warm-ups diagnostics that we can put you through, and we're going to figure out where everybody's lug nuts are loose, and then we're going to put a program together based upon these principles that's going to allow everybody, the principle of specificity. I just need you to move well. How you move well is going to be dependent on you. Axial loading shuts Victor down, so we don't do a ton of axial loading with him. Does he still squat heavy? Yeah, he fucking squats the world with the belt squat. We found that a staggered stance works really well with the trap bar. Bilateral loading. So we found different ways to kind of cheat into him. Single leg Bulgarian split squat that we talked about on the podcast last week with positive shin angle, knee behind the glute, finding different ways to challenge. Fucking through the roof. Ton of vertical pulling. We found that for those guys, overhand is good, but all of a sudden when we start changing the grips and the more they get this way, they're really strong because they're used to doing this. Cool. So.
But it takes a level of curiosity to look inside and say, okay, what am I doing wrong? What am I missing? Because you always look for people that know more than you, and you're like, hey, who's the top leading expert? I want to have a conversation. Yeah. And you can have a hot conversation at a high level, and then you can apply. Like you said, the whole thing with Cal Dietz, the engagement.
I've never met anybody where I feel more dumb than when I'm talking to Cal. And it's hilarious because he solved a problem that I'd had for 20 years, right? One of the ones is, how do you strengthen the feet in a bilateral hip hinge squat, right? Barefoot, putting the feet on, doing the floating heels. All these different movements. And he's like, just hack it. Don't do it. Single leg Hatfield, single leg squats, safety squat bar, Hatfield, have them come up on the toe and maintain that, plantar flexion coming up, and just fucking force it. Instead of doing all this other stuff and working in, just literally see the problem and go right to it and find a way to hack it.
Simple.
And I was like, oh,
it's too simple.
It was too simple. Yeah. I was trying to find ways to do it within the pain, and we have. Because not everybody has the ability to do, Hatfield single leg and do that position. And there's other, extraneous factors that look like quad and knee. There's a whole preparatory phase. Right. That's where, we get into this idea of GPP versus SPP. Is that an SPP movement? 100%. Can you get somebody really strong? But there's a whole progression to getting them there. It's kind of like, going out and getting tan. Some people can just walk out and get tan and don't burn. And there's other people that you have to dose them little by little. And there's other people you probably got to get them some melanotan, it's stuff that Mark Bell talks about where it turned him fucking purple. So, but understanding dose and exposure and what people can and can't, and realizing, and I think everybody has the potential to be the best version of themselves, right? Part of that is humbling, and part of that is finding the right person to take you on that journey. I had, we'll use the jiu-jitsu thing. I had been exposed to it many, many years ago, and a lot of people were like, oh, you want to do it? And I kind of was like, very ambivalent. And, when I met, Shanji and went to Six Blades and Victor and those guys, and I looked at how he taught jiu-jitsu was very similar. And the system that he had for power for Six Blades, short diamond and this and the frames and, here and the dead bug and this and, here's your guard is unpassable and we're going to do it this way. And how you move within space. All of these things, it made sense to me more so than just we'll figure it out.
Well, it's interesting because I talk about this with my Krav Maga people, my other fellow instructors / coaches. And they are just like, oh, what are you talking about? Because that's all they do is that, here you go. You're going to teach punching. And for me, punching is that primal movement pattern, right? Horizontal pulling and pushing. And then it doesn't matter what's in the end, if it's a pen or a knife or a stick, or you're still following the principle, right? How can you generate as much force on a punch? You need to engage your lats. You need to retract and resist those scapulas. You need to keep your hands. It's organic, and it's like you're saying, it's a matrix, right? Once you see it in one way, you're like, oh my God, this is the same way, and this is the same way. And when you mentioned performance, I've been kind of obsessed lately about vocabulary and language. Because when you say performance, a lot of people think, oh, he played in NFL performance on the field. And I'm like, no, there's a different, there's layers of performance and emotional performance, there's spiritual performance, there's all kinds of different levels of athleticism that you need to develop within yourself. because you can be the best athlete. You've met more athletes than myself that are
I have met
high echelon people that are great athletes on the field, but they're donkeys outside of it.
Well, there's certain positions in football and in sport where athleticism, like a higher level of athleticism, like call it like a intelligence,
Right.
athletic intelligence, benefits you to have, be really athletic. The problem is that if you don't have a high quotient for, capacity, let's say, for like the knowledge of the sport, all the athleticism in the world is going to help you.
Yeah.
So, offensive line was one of those things, like the ability to move through space and to be able to do it in fluid. But like on that point of contact, are the skills that you have beneficial or those that aren't? And, I saw guys that were better athletes, but they weren't better football players.
Right.
So there was a really interesting understanding. And in the NFL, like, oh, this guy's an incredible athlete. We just got, if only we can get him. Well, then, what? Fucking teach him how to play.
Right.
Because there's a certain level of like the technique, especially in offensive line, is very non-intuitive, whereas D linemen's get in a stance like a sprinter stance and just get the fucking ball.
Right.
You look at like the Busa brothers. Joey Busa from San Francisco, he looks stoned or like just took hits to the head. He's like, whatever, I just get the ball. Simple. He's not oversimplifying it. He's not solving rocket science equations. He's not trying to get us to the moon. He's not figuring out linear trajectory or anything. He's like, me get ball.
Yeah. What is the name of that guy, Marshall? He's like, I'm just going to run through a motherfucker.
Yeah.
There's no thought behind.
Dude, that was Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah. Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah.
I'm just going to road through them.
And a cow played football. I don't believe he graduated. I'll have to check
That's
that
level.
if he has a degree, but did play at Cal. And his whole deal was like, I'm going to get got, but I'm going to get you before you got me.
Yeah.
Some of his like beast mode.
Oh
like,
my God, dude.
Dude, when they asked him what happened, he's like, I was running. He came up on me and then I had to go beast mode. Like,
it's simple.
Like the He-Man reference of like going beast mode, like it was the best. But the honesty of it, and I don't know him, even though he went to Cal. I've never hung out with him. I don't know. He is he's a different dude.
Yeah.
His wiring's a little little different. But fuck, good for him. He was able to simply convey something that would have taken me exponential amount of words to convey. Right? I would have been like, and then this and this and this, and I would have gone with 100 words. He was like, and then I went beast mode. Then I went beast mode. 5 words he was able to convey. And I'm going to get got, but I'm going to get more than I got. Just really simple. Yeah. And even though there's a certain, I guess you could say, vernacular twinge to it, extremely impactful. Because one, that dude ran the rock like you should. Right. Like there's certain people when you see them putting the foot in the ground, and I got in this conversation yesterday. This is what a huge nerd I am. So I'll give a shout out to the Colonel Tom Canavy, who was my strength coach at the Eagles, went on. He was the head guy for Minnesota Vikings, and then was with Tennessee Titans, and now he's since retired. But he'll periodically listen to this podcast. So Colonel, giving you a thumbs up for the sport, asked me, is there an eccentric load in sprinting? 100% there's an eccentric load. But there's people that believe that there is no eccentric load. But as we were kind of going back and forth, the very simple truth is at some point you have to put your foot in the ground and go 100 miles an hour in that direction and be strong enough within the trunk to maintain a proper lean. Right? If you have trunk strength and you can challenge that, posture and position, more importantly, put your foot in the ground 100 miles an hour and you have the trunk strength to keep lean, everything else just seems to fucking come to deal. Now, people can argue all these finer points, but putting your foot in the ground, getting your knee over your toe, positive shin angle, getting a good forward lead, and ripping the ground out and being able to move and go as fast as you can. Yeah. Is there eccentric load, arm swing, all this other stuff? Like all that stuff just falls by the wayside. Go 100 miles an hour that way. If something gets in your way, put your fucking head down and run through it. And I think within, whether it be business or life and this, I think we create complexity so that we give ourselves like a niche in a space and we give ourselves validation. But if you look at, the Marshawn Lynch, just make it real simple. Yeah. Just put your foot in the ground and go fucking beast mode.
Or that meme that's like, tell me how to lose weight. It's like, sleep, drink water, eat protein, and just move. fine, keep your secrets. And I'm like, whatever.
I was going to ask you, the only thing on the planet that has more funny memes than jiu-jitsu is Krav Maga. And I love the fact that it's MAGA. So it's Krav Maga, making America great again with Krav. Yes. But the Krav memes are hilarious.
Oh my God, dude. You know, the problem is, and just like everything gets prostituted to the 10th level. And when I ran into Krav Maga when did I start? 2003. A friend of mine was running his own studio, ended up being my business partner and a douchebag. But he's like, hey man, you should come to this Krav Maga stuff. I was like, what the hell is that?
What year was this?
2003. Mm-hmm. So I showed up, and I remember in Mexico, I did Taekwondo and Shotokan. Mm-hmm. And they had a red and black belt, which is before the black belt. It was brown belt and then red and black, and it was kind of like a in between brown and black. So I got to red and black in both systems, which was awesome. And I remember getting in fights, and I'm going like, I know how to punch and kick, but where's the application? Yeah. Like I couldn't figure it out because you're doing all these katas, right? You're like, what am I doing?
Dude.
It's like a dance.
Well, I remember in Shotokan having to do all these katas. Oh, yeah. And, your execution of the kata was how you got a belt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so 100%. I was like, okay, so we stand in your line, or you work on your punches and your kicks and your horse stance and the whole deal. And then we would go and practice these like different pieces. And then we had to come in on like Saturdays and do the katas. Mm-hmm. And I remember being like,
what is this?
So I can do a choreographed dance. And then I even love it too. If you see on YouTube or on social media, they'll show these people that like go to these karate competitions and they do the katas. Yeah, and they sound. Oh yeah, and I remember before testing, I would have my mom we would put starch,
extra starch.
Yeah, extra starch. It'll be and because you wanted it to sound cool, and that awesome. Was a big thing of rubbing your elbows, and I just thought it was dumb.
Yeah. Well, I remember asking one of my instructors. I mean, I was probably like 9 or 10, and I was like, what is this for? And he goes, well, it's a tradition. I'm like, okay, it's traditional martial art. I'm like, okay. So fast forward to 2003, this guy invites me to his school, and I take the first class, and I was like, what the fuck is this? This is it. No, I'm like, this is the application. This is the in-between. I know how to punch it, how to apply it. Perfect. Sign me up. And I did about 1.5 years of classes, and I loved it. And I was like, I need to do this. This is awesome. And it just fit. And back then, there was nothing like it. It was the black sheep of the family because it was not a martial art and it was not a sport. So it was like, oh, it's that deadly art. And to give Emi, who's the guy that created this, credit, it's a very complex MMA system. It's the first MMA system. He was a boxer and a gymnast, extremely gifted athlete. His dad was a police officer, and he was involved with all this Greco-Roman wrestling. And he figured out how to put this thing in something that was very easily to be taught. And so they punch, they kick, we wrestle, we do a little jiu-jitsu, we do everything, but it's not the end-all be-all. And the idea is there's two things that makes Krav Maga amazing. One is that we're not trying to teach you jiu-jitsu, but we found 4 or 5 different things that are constantly happening when people get in fight, like a rear naked choke.
Yeah.
Or people that are going to throw you. So a wrestler, they're going to take you down, double leg or single leg, or even the judo. So we're going to grab the most basic foundations of each discipline and help you understand how to perform it, because then you understand the defenses. Mm-hmm. But also what could happen to you if that happens to you, and how could you get away with it. Mm-hmm. So principle-based system. And the other thing is that it's such a simple thing to learn. Once you learn it, you're like, cannot be this easy. Mm-hmm. For example, with our weapons, it's redirect, control, attack, and take away. And that works with a stick, with a knife, with a long gun. And everything's earned. I was talking to Francis, which one of my guys, because he also does jiu-jitsu with the guys.
Dude,
he's great.
I was at class with Francis, and
he's a great dude.
I didn't get a chance to roll to him, so I didn't realize that there's a noon class at Lakes Travis, which is like the over 40 old guys class. So I happened to show up. I was in the area, and I swung by, and Steve was like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're not supposed to be."
I'm over 40.
I was like, "He's like, you're not supposed to be at this class." I was like, "Well, I'm here," and he was like,
Harry sent me.
And so,
it's my class.
So I was like, "This is great." And so I didn't get it. He separated us. I didn't get a chance to roll with Francis.
Yeah, don't kill Francis.
But I was watching him. He was fucking like passing guard on his back. I mean, these guys were fucking flow rollers.
Oh yeah, dude.
And then I showed up, and one of the dudes, we got into a scramble, and I hip tossed him and fucking finished him. That's and awesome. Broke his rib. And they were like, "No, don't hurt them." I'm like, "What?" And then Steve's like, "Be better if you came to 6:30 or in the morning, or come to 6:30 at night." So Arash is competing at Pans.
Oh, nice.
This weekend. So
cool.
Yeah,
Where at?
I think it's in Orlando.
Oh wow.
So in Gee. So tonight should be his last training day. So I'll swing by there tonight. Go see him.
That's awesome.
So my first experience to Krav. You're gonna laugh at this. We were booking seminars, and we were trying to book, like, we got all these invites to come to Europe. So I was overwhelmed, and these guys wanted us, we were supposed to go to Sweden, and then these guys wanted us to come to Norway. So they reached out, and I must have messed up.
These are SWAT guys, right?
The SWAT guys were in Norway or in Sweden.
Yeah.
But I must have messed up on like my Googling or whatever it was at the time. And so I looked and I was like, "Oh, cool, that'll be easy flight." So we go to book this seminar in Bodo, which Bodo CrossFit and Bodo Norway is not close to Helsinki and not close to anywhere in Stockholm. So we end up having to fly there, and then we fly to Bodo, which is like in the Arctic Circle. This is in the summer. The sun doesn't go down.
Oh my!
So we show up. We get there like a day early, whatever, and somehow I don't know what happened. The sun didn't go down, whatever. Like we get up late. Like, I mean, we're supposed to be there at 8 a.m. Like we get up at like 7:45, and we're like, "Holy shit!" I'm banging on everybody's door, and they're like just complete fucking panic. We get there, and like we're like 15 minutes late. All of these attendees, there's like 50 of them, are quietly sitting in their chairs waiting for us. And we walk in, and we were like, they were so fucking pissed. And like, you know, and I walk in, and like, you know, they don't like, they all speak some version of English, but it's not American English to where I can make jokes and be like, "Dude, the sun didn't go down. Like, we're a mess." So the guy whose gym we owned, he also, it was like in this warehouse that I probably was a converting like fishery thing. They also had a Krav school. And so they were getting ready to test for one of the levels. So one of the tests for the levels was they had to, like, in the training, just randomly attack each other, unbeknownst. So in the middle of the seminar, we're standing there, and like they must have like had like some like signal, and they go over and they just start rat packing. Like 3 of them jump one of the dudes and just start beating the shit out of them. Now, mind you, the guy's wife is pregnant. And she's in the training as well. So she has this like protector thing around her belly. They fucking drop her and are kicking her.
Oh, nice.
Like she's on the ground and they're like punching her, and she's like kicking and fighting. And we're like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And like, and then all of a sudden they like break up, and like they'll get and they go back to lifting weights and training. And so like the whole time we're waiting for these people to like jump them. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And he's like, oh, we're you know, we do this, you know, Krav Maga, and it's Israeli, you know, self-defense that we use. And these guys were all like military dudes. And our school teaches it, and we're getting ready for one of our tests. And one of the tests is like a live action test. Like you walk into a room, I guess it's all black, and fucking you get jumped by 10 dudes, and you got to fight your way out of it. So this is
fun.
Yeah,
that's like what we were talking about with Francis. That's exactly what I was going to say. You know, with jiu-jitsu, you show up, you roll, and as you progress, you get promotion. It's a promotion. We do have a curricula, but you got to earn it. I remember coming back from LA, I think I did my brown belt test, which was probably the hardest test I've ever done. And it were only 4 people, because you show up and it's 4 days of testing. The first 3 days, it's about 8-9 hours of everything, punching, kicking, sparring, over and over and over and over again, reviewing everything. brown belt introduces knife defenses. So you have knife, stick, long gun, everything. And then the 4th day you test. And the test, I think my brown belt test was about 11 hours.
Oh, Jesus.
So by the end of the 11th hour, by the hour number 9, they're like, hey, let's go to the other side. It was Sunday. It was always Sunday. And we show up and there's like 5 black belts just warming up. We're like, fuck. So we get to spar multiple attackers that are fresh over and over and over again. So the cool thing about Krav is that, especially within Krav Maga Worldwide, which is the organization I'm in, the way you earn it is they deplete you with everything. If you show up in condition, it doesn't matter. They're gonna make sure that you get erased. Why? Because they want to see what comes out when your brain is not there. So, meeting Craig Douglas and talking all the stuff they do it's kind of fun. But I've done all that stuff, man, and I've like gotten hit with a stick, and the knives are not plastic knives; they're metal, and you get hit. I mean, there's a lot of interesting, fun pieces of it. And testing is they're memorable. I mean, I remember Liz to this day has only seen me do Krav Maga once. This was for my second dan. She showed up randomly out of the blue on the 3rd day. I'm like, great. I'm like, thanks for coming, honey. He's like, what's happening tomorrow? I'm like, well, it's a test day. What time you start? It's like, we're starting at 9. How long is it gonna go for? I don't know. She's like, oh, I'm gonna sit here on the bench, and then I'm probably gonna go get coffee and come back. And I'm like, yeah, no worries. Make yourself at home. She sat there and never moved for 6 hours. And at the end, she goes, you just ran a marathon. Because the guy that ran the test, the 2nd degree black belt is all about third-party protection, multiple attackers, weapon, and carjacking. So you're constantly defending a VIP or defending multiple attackers. And it's just a monkey in the middle, man. It's just never ceases to stop. She's like, you ran a marathon. I don't know. We never stopped. There was no breaks. So it's when I found Krav Maga, there was nothing written about it. There was no website. I mean, there was a website, but there was nobody knew about it, and there were only a handful of black belts. And I was like, I want to do this because if I get a black belt in Krav Maga, it's going to be legit.
So you started in Mexico then?
No, I started here in the U.S.
Oh,
I started here in 2003 with this guy. So 2005, I opened the school, and then it was kind of cool because I would go close the school, go get tested, come back, and just keep building the levels. And it's been really, really amazing. I got to send you a video with my friend Amir Peretz, who is Bas Rudin's best man. And Amir he's one of the best Krav Maga practitioners in the world.
Our boss talked about him.
He actually did National Geographic, and there's videos of him redirecting the gun as he's being shot at with a pellet gun. And it's mind blowing. So it's kind of fun to see when I met you in 2014, how all this principle based system within strength and conditioning and athleticism.
Was that when we met at your gym?
No, I met you in CrossFit Central. We came with Luke and did that CrossFit football. I met Luke and Ben first. That was in Selma.
So was it at was Kate with us?
No, that was after that.
Okay.
Because then there was the first symposium in Costa Mesa.
Yeah.
That's when I met Kate. And you just,
right.
had Cachito as a baby.
Yeah, it was in 2016.
Yeah. And then the rest is history. But it's kind of fun to see this, talking about Six Blades, talking about Krav Maga, talking about Power Athlete. The matrix is in those 3 systems. That's why I mean we rolled around with other people before, and we were like, yeah, jiu-jitsu. All the groundwork that I know is through Bas Rudin.
Yeah. And
Bas has a very amazing approach on how to. He was never taught jiu-jitsu. He self-taught all this stuff. Yeah. He talks about waking his wife up, going, "Put me on this."
Well, he had this book.
Yeah.
So there was a book that was
Big
like
Book of Combat.
Yeah, but it was like from like the 1800s.
Oh, really?
And some guy gave him this book, and it was all these like hand drawn like kind of movements where you see like this and this, and so it was this book from the guy get him, and he was like opening it and being like, "Oh, that's how we started," and like this, and so yeah, he is. I think like when God was handing things out, he was like warrior. And he just didn't put Bas in the right time period.
Oh my God.
Like he, like if he had put Bas in like the 14, 15, 1600s in feudal Japan, he would have been like, at Samurai. Like
Yeah.
if
100%.
if he had put him in, Greece, it would have been like Spartan. Like I don't care. Like you can think of like, you guys can go do a search, but there's certain groups in history that have had legendary warriors. I mean, like they made all the movies about, Ragnar Lothbrok and, Bjorn Ironside and, all these like, Viking dudes and, this, and, you look at, the Spartans and, all these different pieces.
Yeah, he definitely would have been one of those guys.
You could you could go like, well, hopefully one day we get a time machine. We could just drop Boss. Like that would be the world's best reality show. Be like, we have a time machine. We're taking 26-year-old Boss Rutan and we're dropping him into the Spartans, and he's showing up, and that would be the best reality show. Seeing how quickly Boss Rutan is, all of a sudden they're like, Boss. He is.
But this is the coolest thing, and this is something you have in common with him, and Mark and we talked about how our small circle is so small, right? That guy, you, and all these other guys. Family man, respectful, goal-oriented, honorable, loyal.
Yeah.
That's what I crave for. I'm like, oh, great, you did this in the NFL. Awesome. Now, are you a good dude?
Yeah.
Are you a good man? I don't want to fucking waste my time with people that are not worthy. That's kind of where I'm at right now. It was a really bittersweet weekend for me because Enrique invited me to be his minister for his wedding. He got married on Friday. So it was a great
Congratulations.
honor. And I was trying to come up with something to say. And of course I started getting choked up and I had to like skedaddled and like try to finish fast. But the next day I got a call from one of my friend, David, passed away.
Oh.
So David was just like us. I mean, if you would have met him, you would have loved him. He was a family guy. He was always so generous with his time, so loyal. Always had time for you.
What did he pass away from?
This is a guy that I sent to Dr. Tom after his second bout with leukemia.
Yeah.
Sad thing, he got pneumonia, so he couldn't recover.
Weakened immune system.
Yeah, man, it was weird because I felt it. On the last 2 Sundays ago, I opened up Facebook and another private client of mine, he went to see his dad. His dad is 9. He's like, my dad's not doing well, dude. I'm going to go see him. I'm like, good for you. You're a good son. He showed up a week later. He passed away at 90. That was one. I have this weird thing about it always comes in threes, man. Yeah. So I open up Facebook again, and another former client of mine, Terry, may she rest in peace. She passed away also from cancer. And I hadn't received anything from David during the week, so I would check in every 2 or 3 days. Love you, man. How are you feeling? How are you doing? And I reached out to my priest. I'm like, have you heard from David? He's like, no, I haven't heard from him. I'm like, I have a weird feeling about this. And of course, at 6 a.m, I woke up to the bathroom, look at my phone, and his wife was like, he passed away. I was like, man. And just being surrounded with good men, man, is what I don't want to have friends that are fake and they're not authentic. I'm tired of not mentoring. I don't mind mentoring, but standing there with Enrique, and he's such a fucking stud.
He's such a good kid.
He's an old soul, man, and I'm just so blessed to have, I'm blessed to have you and all these guys, but that's like the common denominator. I'm always looking for inspiration, not on the business side of things, on how you treat your spouse or how you treat your kids, okay, how you treat your friends. What kind of a human are you?
Yeah.
Are you a piece of shit, or are you a person that's going to be there to help? Be a useful person. So I think that's the next one, right? Is you're a simple guy, but you're also a useful person.
I try to be. I guess you could say you remember we were at Summer Strong and Tate Fletcher got up and gave his talk, and he didn't know what the fuck he was going to talk about. I reached out to him. I'm going to try to get him back here to get the podcast. We'll get some
food. Yeah.
But remember, he got up there and he didn't really either blanked or didn't know what he was going to talk about or whatever. And we kind of everybody started cheering for him. And he got up there and he told the story about that old guy that they had kind of accepted into their deal. And that idea of being useful. And I've long subscribed to the idea that the day that you stop being useful, you become useless.
Yeah.
And I've 100%, I'll throw a stake in the ground on it. It's the reason what's happens to a lot of NFL players and a lot of pro athletes. Let's say you get paid some fucking retarded amount of money, like $180, $200 million, just some dumb amount, where all of a sudden you're like, this is more money than I'll ever spend in a lifetime, right? And this is like generational money. My kids' are not, if they don't screw this up, right? So then all of a sudden now anything that you've ever wanted, you pretty much go buy for probably like the first 2 years. You travel the world, you see everything you want, you buy everything you want, and then you realize like none of this makes me happy.
Yeah.
So what happens when that happens and you have this like big, let's say, puddle of money, and like no longer do I have to worry about feeding my family, no longer do I have to worry about whatever car. If wife needs a new car, just go buy a new one. Tell me what it is. Like just like you want for nothing. And I think when that happens, it becomes extremely difficult to find purpose. It's not like I got to get up today because I got to feed my kids and I got to do this and this and this. And that idea of like no longer when you are like you become kind of useless because you just don't have something to drive into you because there's not motivation. Not to say that money is the only motivation, but for a lot of guys it is, right? Like I met a lot of guys, they were going to go play in the NFL. They were good at it. They loved the game. They made the money they wanted, and now they get to do whatever the fuck they want. And I always laugh when Jared Allen, who was my roommate, he got paid. He was the highest paid defensive player. I remember he called me on the phone. He's like, I never have to say sorry. And he had our buddy Boomer following around with a stack of hundreds. If Jared did something stupid, Boomer just handed him $100 and like didn't say sorry. He's like, I'm never saying sorry again. I mean, amazing, right? Yeah. Like that's great. But like, he's gone and he builds homes for veterans and and like he does like you have to continue to do things. It's almost as if like what you need to do is, hey, that money's great. The day you retire, you give that to somebody, not that you just give it to them, but you like, hey, don't give me this. Yeah. Like I'm going to start doing it. It's kind of what I did when I retired. I looked at it and thought, I'm going to start new. I'm going to start fresh. Yeah. I was fortunate. I owned a home, had some car, a car or whatever, some of the things I'd had, but I looked at it and was like, I'm going to start zero. And you know what? I'm going to live off of what I make, and I'm going to drive it in this, and I'm going to try to build a business, and I'm going to do all these things. And that first year, I taught 36 seminars around the globe. And if I could travel my ass off, showed up, and sometimes there were 50 people, and we made 40 grand. Sometimes they showed up and there was 5, and we lost money. But the ability to stand up in front of people and convey this message and really teach this power athlete methodology and CrossFit football and all the stuff we were teaching to people live, and then putting them through the seminar and being able to influence those people, like that was by far one of the greatest things I've done on the planet. Right? Because how many coaches or people or whatever the fuck you want to call me, the only other people I know that did this was like Kelly Starrett. And Kelly and I talk about this, like never will another individual have the same opportunity to travel the world, show up and get anywhere from 20 to 50 new people every single weekend, right, and put them through this diagnostic, which we call the 2-day seminar, which is really a diagnostic. We were putting people in and seeing what they could and couldn't do, and more importantly, the people that had been doing our training could do it better than the people that didn't. Right? If you could sprint and run and were strong, all these things. I mean, we had all these pieces. And I got a chance to meet all the people that were doing the training program that we were giving away for free. I mean, you put this program out for free. We get 17,000 hits the first day. Yeah. Tens of thousands of people follow the training program. And then I traveled for years and met the people that did the training program and got all of the user-generated feedback. We just had a really interesting milestone on March 4th. 10 years ago, we started Field Strong as behind the paywall. And then I think the 10 years for Jack Street's coming up. I think we're in 9 years. It's coming up somewhere in there. But we've been, launched those programs, had people do it. I mean, I got got a pretty cool note the other day from a guy who in NSW letting me know that, one of their teammates had passed, fairly recently, and was a Jack Street guy, had followed Hammer and was lived and died with Jack Street. And, it's like, hey, don't, keep within the circle. So I'm telling the podcast, I'm not going to throw any names, but like, don't put it on social, just kind of, the quiet professional, low key. And, So now figuring out like, how do we honor that guy? Probably with the Jack Street Cycle name and something, we'll find a way to honor him. But like, it's cool. It's rad. It's fucking beyond rad to think that people that are using the training programs are people that are actively going in harm's way and using it to be the best version of themselves, which was something that I never intended. When we started CrossFit football, it was really, Glassman's pitch was like CrossFit sits in the middle. We got, CrossFit endurance, which I will never speak that dude's name. And then on the other side, you have CrossFit football, which is this power-based sport. And the idea was that we're going to try to get CrossFit into sport within high schools and gyms, and we're going to revolutionize the ways kids are training. We're going to use heavy lifts and short metabolic conditioning workouts to try to drive adaptation. Yeah. And it was, the first time CrossFit had ever licensed somebody to develop their own version of CrossFit independent of CrossFit methodology. And, years later, it became a huge problem because they were like, fuck, this is eroding our brand. And I'm like, yeah, I know. How the fuck have you let me do this? So nobody else, everybody, endurance was, hey, here's how to put endurance running with CrossFit. Olympic lifting, hey, we're teaching Olympic lifting, which is a skill within CrossFit. Kettlebells is a skill within CrossFit. Gymnastics, all these other things were skills within CrossFit. Power athlete, CrossFit football was its own methodology, forging powerful athletes. Fostering, developing athleticism, all of these pieces. This was our own deal. Yeah. And CrossFit signed off on it. And then I think years later they realized,
like, what have we done?
We built a monster because everybody wants to be powerful. Nobody wants to be elite. Yeah. And, but I had this incredible opportunity to travel and meet the people doing the training and put them through this diagnostic, and it allowed me to have these conversations in real time. So what might take somebody a lifetime to train that many people or work with that many people, I got to do it within a short amount of time. And it's like, Kelly Starrett said, I got to show up every weekend with new people, and I got to test new things and have different conversations.
It'll never happen again.
It'll never happen again.
It's like we're talking about, I have this group of teenagers, sophomores, the Charitable League of Sophomores in America and something like that here in Lake Travis. One of my clients invited me to speak on self-defense with these girls, and I show up and they're like, big sweaters, tiny little shorts, really super cute, very petite.
Were they all wearing pajama pants?
No, they were not wearing pants. I actually teased them. I'm like, are you guys wearing pants? Because the sweaters are so big, you cannot see it. Yeah. But we're talking about this. I'm like, hey, everybody put your phones down. It's like, who? They're like, oh my God, no. We were in the middle of Lakeway. I'm like, who can drive to HEB without their phone? They're like, oh my God. Maybe 2 people. Because they get in the car and they just look at the phone, right? Yeah. So we grew up with no cell phones. We had to remember hundreds of numbers and learn how to get or read a map.
Yeah, well, we had these things called Thomas cats.
Yeah.
And like you pretty much like pop open the page, and then the hilarious part was you would put like you would like draw the line, or what we would do is we'd print the page and then we'd take a highlighter and you would draw it and then you'd put the notes. Yeah. Or if I was somewhere where I didn't know, I had to call my dad on the phone.
Grand McNally.
And I would pull over and I'd be like, hey, Dad. Hey, I'm over here, and here. He's like, okay, what you need to do is you got to jump on the 710. And so the funny part though is, if you ever go to Southern California, it's the 405, the 710, the 605, and this, and nowhere else in the world does it. Like, hey, I jump on 80, I jump on this, 620. But it's always the. And I asked my dad one time, I was like, Dad, why do we always say the in front? He goes, well, you have to remember, LA had its own freeway system before the Freeway Act of like 1959, right? Only my dad would know this.
I thought the same thing. Yeah. I'm like, only he would know that.
Like when my dad passed away, the world lost probably the greatest resource for obscure information ever. And so he goes, you have to remember, LA had a really detailed, amazing, freeway system before the rest of the country did. And so 59, I think it was Eisenhower comes in, he puts a Freeway Act, and so then they go through and they start building all the highways, and they gave them numbers. Well, LA had the Santa Monica, they had the Long Beach, they had the LA freeway. So all the freeways were the LA, Santa Monica, and then there was Little Santa Monica and Big Santa Monica. And so that's how I grew up. Is my dad's like, hey, you're going to have to jump on, the LA freeway, and you're going to take that out to Santa Monica on this. And so it was always names. So then what they did is when they came in, they had to give, like, the LA freeway was the 110, and, you know, the Santa Monica freeway was the 10, and, you know, the 705 was the Long Beach. And so they gave them numbers. So people started, you know, the Santa Monica. So then it became, you know, the 10. So that's why it's the sits in there. And my dad was incredible. And he'd be like, okay, what you got to do is you got, you know, and he could give, you know, because he grew up there his whole life. And there, you know, this is before, you know, there were maps and this, and like there were more freeways than they added. I mean, he lived there his entire life. So he knew that, and knew every spot to eat. I mean, I could call him anywhere in LA.
He'd be like,
and he'd be like, he's like, go up, bang it right at the light, go there. There's a great little place.
Nice.
He fucking knew it. And, but I think the problem, and I ask my kids this constantly, if I dropped you like so where the girls, when we originally moved out here, they went to Bee Cave Elementary, and it's like 1.2 miles from our house. So, and it's all on the same road. So I would ask the girls pretty regularly, hey, if something bad happened and there was a school shooter or something, could you get home? And if we couldn't get to you, and they were like, no. And I'm like, so in the car, like, you know, because they're, you know, I'm like, so my dad didn't like listen to the radio, so we either had to talk or look out the window. So I got really good at like observing, like knowing where we were, how close. They don't. They're just on their phones.
Yeah.
So they don't have any wherewithal. And to even some extent, my wife laughs, like, I don't know Austin as well as I know in other cities, because for the most part, I just plug it in. And
well, because you're testing.
Yeah.
Texting. You're like, hold on.
Yeah. So now I have like text to chat. So that's my new, like, or a voice to text. But it's, you know, we just to kind of take it back, but like Tate's talk about that, you know, that guy that they brought in, his idea of being a useful, contributing member of society that is allowing the furtherment and just the, like, the greased, you know, like the smooth ascension forward for the group. And he's like, you know, he was that for them. Yeah. And like when, you know, Tate gave that talk, he's like, that's how I want to be remembered. I want to be of service to my fellow man, and I want to be able to move our group forward. And, you know, that's, you know, as you talk about being useful, like it's, you know, past being a simple man, are you providing a service?
Right.
Are you allowing people to be the best version of themselves? And I think it's really easy to be like, kind of, I don't know, internal on yourself, and where you're like, because these existential moments happens to everybody. Happened to me where you're like, you know, what the fuck am I doing here?
Well, think about,
is this really helping anybody? Yeah. This is fucking stupid.
Well, think about how many people of quality have you met through this. I was, you know, I continue to think of David right now, but I never thought of having a business that my clients eventually become my family.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
And I can think of, I mean, going to I've gone to other fitness certifications in strength conditioning, and I didn't become friends with the guy, you know, or the girl, whatever. And it's interesting how we end up being surrounded by people that are hopefully better than us, that are going to elevate us to that level of being useful. Yeah. Because something that we're running into right now across the board in anything is nobody likes the truth, man. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about you. You're like, you're fucking up. What the fuck are you doing? Yeah. And you're like, oh, hey, you forgot. You said you were going to do this. You haven't done this. So who's keeping you accountable? And that's always, I'm craving that feedback, not only from my spouse or my friends, but from my clients. You know, give me. What am I missing? What am I not missing? You know, what am I doing right?
You know, we it's pretty funny. Like like so many of our interactions happen online, and so many of interactions happen like in this like virtual kind of like fucking world, like, you know, player one kind of deal. But I was I like, you know, we have a really robust Discord through Power Athlete, you know, for all the programs, you know, Trainer Oak, where our programs are housed, has these like feeds, but they're very singular. They're hard to search and this, and it just, I wanted to create a better community, and I wanted people to be able to like interact in a better way. You know, I want people to be able to get coached and be better. And, you know, we do in late December through January, we do this thing called the annuals, where people pay upfront for a year and they get a consult. And I do a ton of them. Nice. You know, I got Johnny Durrett doing some, you know, Rob Exline, those guys all do great. Actually, the feedback I've gotten about Johnny is probably better than my feedback.
Nice.
Fucking love that dude. So I get on a chance and I get a chance to talk to some of these guys. And a lot of times they have questions and other times they just want to shoot the shit. And just like I talked to a guy.
I need venting.
I talked to a guy yesterday and he just was like, I don't really have anything. I just figured we were going to wrap. And so I talked to him for like 30 minutes.
Nice.
And, but as we were kind of like, so having these great conversations, but then a lot of these conversations take place through our Discord. And one of the guys who I don't believe he's somewhere not in the US, was asking a question about power athlete methodology, especially the idea of like a fixed position and transverse plane with rotation. And like, I'm constantly looking at like, okay, what movement can I add that's going to add, frontal and transverse plane? Because everything's sagittal. Yeah. So I'm searching for different ways to try to get these fucking movements in play. And one we were using was called hack twists. So we called it that because Hackerly, who's one of the guys we had on the podcast, it was one of the movements that I guess he, liked. And, he showed it to me and I was like, fuck, dude, we're going to throw that thing in. So it's 2 kettlebells, right? Fix, position, dead bug, and you work on rotation. And what's really fascinating is you can kind of see I have great rotation this way, but I'm bound this way. And it's kind of just a diagnostic. And when I watch, I can see people like all of a sudden the feet starts changing in this. And it's just kind of a cool diagnosis. So the guy asked, like, why do we do this? And I was like, bilateral fixed position, hollow, dead bug position, squeeze the glutes, rotation, moving, separating the upper body from the lower body. So I thought that was fine. He asked like 4 more questions. And so I'm happy to answer. And then finally I was like, yo, if you're this excited about transverse plane, sign up for the methodology. Right. We go fucking deep on this. And on top of it, we have a coaches Discord that if you go through, you get in there and fucking go absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's deep.
Right. And that was it. So then, Harry has been trying to get more reviews on Trustpilot. So some guy, James, leaves a scathing review on our Trustpilot about how arrogant I am and how fucking dare I do some money grab by recommending the guy.
How dare you make a living?
Well, no, but
asshole.
But here's the thing:
for free.
Well, we give everything for free.
Yeah.
But the methodology
How much more do you
course,
want?
but the methodology course, like it's a deep dive into this. And if you're and like it was legit, if you were this excited, but because I wasn't like HJing the guy, just basically matter of fact, hey, right, like I do, and then this guy who wasn't even involved in the conversation decided to go and then fucking land-based me. And so Harry sent it to me, and I'm like, this motherfucker. So I posted. And then the guy goes back and he starts, he doesn't have the balls to engage in the Discord. He's just like a little fucking worm flying around. But then goes back and changes his Discord or his Trustpilot review and like is fucking like coming at us. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Right. And then like the funny part was the guy that wrote the original question, I tagged him. He's like, it wasn't me. I'm like, I know it wasn't you. And he's like, I find this very unprofessional. I'm like, then you're not my people. Yeah. Right. Then you know what? You can go. Right. Like if you don't have like you very easily could have listened to the interaction and commented and been like, I don't like the way you did that. And I would have been like, why? And he's like, you don't like anybody to challenge you. I'm like, that's not true at all. This entire fucking thing is people challenging me all day long. Right.
Well, I have this concept that says familiarity breeds contempt.
Well, it does.
Just because you're friendly. Oh, I'm talking to John Welborn. Now you're friendly. Now I expect more from you.
Yeah, but here's the deal: if you're gonna if you're gonna challenge me on my points, where like this is the foundation of which I built this on, I'll fucking argue you fucking to the nth degree. And you know what? And I have a team of fucking absolute killers behind me who understand this methodology on with like you and Waldman and Skutnik and all Johnny D and MCK. I mean, all of these dudes will literally come out and go boots to skulls, jaws to curbs, right? For it. Because why? Because they use it. I mean, like look at MCK, right? The reason he is an absolute killer is because he's used this to train like not a few, but hundreds, if not thousands. And I mean, just like the pedigree is fucking incredible. Yeah. I mean, 100%. He's following the well-built, standalone powerlifting program I have. He's like, this is one of the greatest thing I've fucking done. Nice. And I'm like, yeah, dude, it's just one adaptation. And he's like, I can see how you're skinning it and it still fits within it. I'm like, yeah, I build everything within the framework. It's just how you kind of change the knobs. But like that's such an interesting piece that you create this community. And you tried to even do it virtually, right? Because it's impossible, because you're not going to see these people. And there's one dude who
what
fucking wants to fucking take shots, but doesn't have the balls to do it.
Don't create a fucking persona or alias. Put your fucking name in it and have the balls to have a conversation.
Yeah.
That's why, and I said the same thing because Karma Guy also has a fucking Discord. By the time I open Discord, man, I'm like 50 conversations behind. I'm like, I have no fucking time for this.
Well, so for me is I allow myself 2
hours.
No, there's 2 ventures into it. So I do it in the morning. So I train at 6. I get done. There's like a window between when I get done, eat breakfast, and have to drive Jamie to school. Jamie leaves at 8:30. I get done training at like 7:15.
Soon she's going to be driving, dude. I don't know why she's not doing it right now.
She's
the right age.
So.
She's already as tall as you are, so
she told me I'm not growing anymore. So she told me she doesn't want to be any taller.
Okay,
because she's like 5'7", and she's like, I'm already. I'm like, don't worry, all the boys will catch up. You're not like fucking.
No, they're not.
But so Victor and Philippe asked yesterday. They're like, what kind of cars are you going to get for the girls? And I was like, I got DJ on it. Oh yeah, like there's so at least once
a day. A lot of rims, bro.
No, they're gonna get off-road tires.
Oh, of course.
So little known fact: every year on Women's Day, Harry sends me a picture of a rim that's been curved.
That's the one I sent you.
I know you sent, and then I look back. You sent it to me last year.
I know
you send it to me every year.
Gee, I wonder why.
So,
and we like to beat a dead horse.
Well, the hilarious part was, so my wife's truck, she curbed all the wheels. So I pulled them up and I put like 20s with like off-road tires in her truck. And so she's...
Thank God she doesn't listen to this podcast.
No, not at all. She'd be so mad. But yesterday, so she's got to take Killy over to do some Western riding stuff. She's got to load her pony up. And so she's like, hey, can I borrow your truck? And I'm like,
you're like, maybe.
So she's like, oh, your truck tows so much easier. I'm like, yeah, because it's actually a truck. It's not a, half-ton Suburban. So she gets in there, like gets the whole thing hooked up. And I'm just like, oh my God. And so she's driving and this like car pulls out, slams a foot on the brake. And so she like, and mind you, she's a seat all the way forward, which is like, driving like this, she like puts her foot on the brake and like the truck stops and she's like, I can't believe how well your truck stops. I'm like, yeah, it's a 1-ton truck and it's used to towing trailers
and drive.
And so it's but yeah, it's
so you're buying her a truck, is that what you're saying?
No, I told her, I was like, why don't you get a truck? And so she's like, no, she wants something. But so the joke becomes like Killy was telling me the other day, she's like, Dad, I want for my car, I want your blue dually, your single cab. I'm like, so manual transmission, 6-speed, dual center force clutch, so dual friction South Bend clutch, power window, manual windows, manual door locks, dually short bed, diesel, like 05. Like,
no problem.
That's what you really want to drive. And she's like, well, yeah, it tows a trailer. I'm like, everything tows a trailer.
Yeah.
Right. But
just was Liz's Subaru tows a trailer.
Yeah, it'll tow a trailer. So I saw Logan, and where it's coming up, I saw Logan pull up, driving Liz's Subaru, and I was like,
oh, and she knows how to drive stick. Both of the girls. Well, Lauren drives stick.
Yeah. Well,
so she's like, I want to drive stick.
Well, they have to.
Harrison can't, so I'm like, dude, he's like, I can't.
It's like too many things. There's levers.
Yeah, no. I was like, he doesn't need that. That's too many distractions.
What kind of car does he have?
We got him it's like a Ford Focus, like this little tiny car. He's terrified of big cars.
Oh.
So when he used to drive the other Subaru that Liz had.
It was too big for him?
No, she loved it. It was a smaller version of the one she has now, and she loved it. He loved it, and he's like, I'm trying to push him to get a new car next year, because that car has like 120,000 miles. He's like, I'm going to San Antonio. I'm like, not that car. Where are you? I'm south of San Antonio in a flea market. I'm like, oh my God, you should have asked John. He would have gone with you.
We could have said DJ with
every flea market in the area.
What's he get at flea markets?
He has this friend, he's a Mexican cat, and they just go and buy some pirated stuff, man. Like he comes back with his Legos and these things that are like funky and made up, and he loves doing all that stuff. I'm like, oh my God, kid. He cracks me up. He's so funny, man.
He's a funny kid.
Kids, man, you got to have them.
Well,
you need to evolve and you grow.
And I've come to the conclusion that regardless of what you think you can do and nurture and all this, they're going to be who they're going to be.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think the only thing you can do is like come home every night, treat your wife well, make sure there's food on the table. You know, don't be overly, you know, like so I read this book. You'll laugh at this. So as a parent, as a father of daughters, and somebody will be like, oh, what's the name of the book? I don't remember the name of it. But they talked about do not belittle your daughters, right? Like stuff like don't like try to shame them and this. And like they're going through all this stuff. I'm like, that was exactly how I was raised.
Wait,
I was like,
Mother, you need to read this.
and I just was like, like everything that they said in the book, like don't do. I was like, that's exactly how I was raised. I was like shaming and belittle, like, but then I realized maybe for boys that's how you get them moved, being like, listen here, you piece of shit, or like, I can't believe you're going to let your mother take out the trash, or like, all these things. I mean, and just like
it's too funny.
Yeah. So I just was like, okay, so for the girls, I'm always like, hey, it's great to see you guys. How are you? How's everything? How can I help? And like Kelly's like, my phone's broken again. And I'm like, okay, well, let's get your phone fixed. So I guess like helping her like with her phone stuff is like, cause it's like, she actually reminds me of my mom in that way. My mom. Not the
other child?
No. So with technology, my mom has like, I've never met anybody that has more technology that she claims isn't user error. She's like, this phone doesn't work. And I'll be like, okay, well, this isn't turned on. How'd you turn? I don't know. Kelly, same thing. This isn't working. I'm like, the fact that I'm your tech support, like I'm everybody's tech support. I'm like, I'm the least techie person you know. How am I your tech support?
Dude, going back to this whole thing about the cell phones, if they shut us down, the grid,
we're not wait.
The only people that are going to survive is the third world country people that are here. They're like, we've never had any food or anything. Yeah. We're here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean,
it's kind of scary.
I would not be upset if we got rid of cell phones.
Oh my God.
And like, don't get rid of the internet, but you can only access it from a computer.
Right.
And then we have to have house phones again.
Oh yeah.
So I want to have a house phone. I want to be able to pick up. I don't want any more text messages. I don't want any house phone. Like I want to like have to be able to pick up the house phone.
Where would the sounds of your childhood be right now? With
going
to the library and then getting 17 encyclopedias to write something on a mechanical tap.
I did
that.
My dad still.
I know. You still have his typewriter?
No, I don't. My brother has it.
That's legit.
The hilarious part was, I'm sure I told you, but Kelly had this like project she had to do, and like comes down. Like, it's got to be due tomorrow. I'm like, oh, it's 9:00. All right, fuck it. Let's get into it. So we get into this thing. And I forgot how, like, so the internet has added a level of research that is unfathomable.
Oh, yeah.
I remember in college having to go to Stacks and check out this, and we'd have to go get books and encyclopedias and Encyclopedia Britannica and the whole thing. So, I mean, like, you're over there, like, reading this stuff, trying to do that, like, shit, I got on there, and I was like, and I'm like, cut and pasting. I did this report for her, and I gave it to her, and I was like, I want you to read this, and then I want you to go back and rewrite this so that it doesn't look like your dad. And so she wrote it again, and I was like, change these parts. And we went through like 5 revisions, and then it became like her words. And then I, pretty much was like, okay. And like, we did all the stuff and the picture. I mean,
nice.
Like we crushed this project in probably 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And she's like, Dad, like,
that was
awesome. Great. And I'm like, yeah. Do you know how long that would have taken me without the internet?
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because you had to read the whole thing.
Yeah. And you had to go to the library. So it's done some amazing things, but I think like the text message thing has made everybody lazy in terms of contact. Like a text is as good as saying hello. And I'm as guilty of it as anybody, you know, just because it's like, it's really easy just to shoot somebody a text and go on with your life. Whereas, to sit down and have a conversation takes a certain level of investment. But like, so does it allow you to have like to keep current on like a ton of relationships?
Right.
But then you think like how many connection points can we really have?
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about, we were just talking about all our systems, Power Athlete and Krav Maga and Jiu-Jitsu and all the buzzword. I mean, those guys, I remember you couldn't get anything on DVD or watch any videos. You had to go and train with somebody to learn that.
I want to buy Boss's Barroom.
Oh my God.
Barroom fight sequences.
I have it somewhere. I'll bring it to you.
On VHS?
Yeah. No, I have it on DVD.
Oh, you have it on DVD? So I have.
Look what do we have here?
Bing,
no,
bong,
you
boom,
don't.
Bing. Oh, dude, and then when I asked him, because we were watching the clips, I was like, was any of that scripted? He's like, no, all that was ad libbed.
Oh no, dude.
They didn't even have a script for him. Yeah. They just turned on the camera and they were like, hey, show some things you do in a barroom fight, and like that was it.
And then you play hide the Tabasco sauce.
So he's a national treasure.
No, I'm telling you, we gotta
find out. He's so busy with combat karate and all the stuff he does.
Dude, that
he's so in, like, there's such a there's such a vacuum for people like Boss that he just, like, everybody has a vacuum that needs a boss.
I tried to get into that combat karate. I just could not do it. I mean, if you think about when we were kids, if I would have landed in Kyokushin karate, it would have been greater than the Taekwondo and the Shotokan that I did. Because that's fucking legit. That's how I mean, you get punched a lot.
Well, didn't Craig Jones do that where he he went to do the combat karate and, like, jumped up on the the wall and got the guy in the triangle?
So good. I like that guy. He's so original.
Oh my god, he's a funny dude.
So out there.
I
like him. You should have him for the podcast, bro.
I think I might reach out to him.
He'll do it.
He would be a great.
And then he's Volkanovski's jiu-jitsu coach.
Yeah.
I love Volkanovski. Is one of my favorite fighters.
So when I was leaving on Monday morning after the UFC fight where he fought against Lovato and then Nicky Rod and his brother fought and then Victor fought. So I was in line getting on Southwest and those guys were there. And I was looking for Craig Jones and he wasn't. Because if he was, I would have rolled over to him and been like, yo, man, I got to get you on the podcast, dude. We got to come. So I'll find a way to run into him, to meet him. But dude, hilarious.
He doesn't take himself so seriously. That's a cool thing. He's a fucking legit dude, but he just likes to have fun.
Well, he did a couple of amazing things. One, after Lovato's fight, he wanted to, he went through and he basically, they were like, hey, is anything you want to say? He's like, yeah, I just want to thank my sponsor, steroids, and they cut the feed. And then he proceeded to go, like, it was hysterical. Funny. And then when they asked him who he wanted, and he's like, after seeing the dog shit that Marigali just put out, I might just go on a bender and come back and beat him. Yeah. I mean, just belittled him. Yeah. It was so well done. He is truly a funny guy, and his jiu-jitsu's on point.
Oh yeah, dude.
I didn't really realize, like, how on point his jiu-jitsu was. I mean, he's real good.
If you can Google it later, watch that fight between Volkanovski and Brian Garcia. Brian Garcia is a legit killer in the jiu-jitsu world. He's amazing, and he caught him in this deep guillotine, and Volk got out of it because.
Have you ever noticed that everybody gets out of guillotines? Like, you would think
this was so tight, man.
The only guy that I've ever seen who legitimately can nail a guillotine, and it's because he does it tall, is John Jones. Yeah. Like when he got Leo Machado.
Oh my God, dude! And he just hung in there,
and then he basically was up on his tippy toes and lifting him off the ground. Yeah, and fucking nasty. Just dropped him.
It was fucking nasty.
Yeah, that was.
I want to see John Jones get his ass destroyed by Aspinall. That's a new level. Have you seen that guy?
Yeah.
We talk about, like, the generations right now. So you get now Kishito doing jiu-jitsu and spends 10 years now. He's a master, at 15.
I was training the guys yesterday, and Kashi got dropped off from school, and he came in, and I thought he was going to come in and try to, like, take him down, and he really wasn't feeling it yesterday.
Yeah.
And so then last night I was like, because he this is how funny he is. I was like, dude, how come you didn't try to get fucking Mr. Victor in a takedown or anything? He's like, I got a baseball game later today. I don't want to get tired out. So then last night we go to his first baseball game, and he got up for, like, he got up. He went 1 for 2. So he struck out, like he was going to get in a feel. The coach was throwing some fucking grapefruits. Second time he gets up, crushes the ball, and gets a nice hit, gets a second, and then the inning was up. But then he was kind of playing all over. He was playing different positions, but they had him kind of playing shallow and right. He caught a really nice pop up. I mean, it was high, and, like, normally you go this way. He did a fucking basket catch like this and caught it. And, like, when we were working, like when we were warming up, I was throwing on the ball. He kept, like, turning it over, catching like this, and I'm like, dude, stop catching like a basket, dude. And he fucking went over there, like, totally caught it. And I was like, holy shit. And so I was sitting in the dugout because his blood sugar was a little funky. So we got him on this thing that's called it's like a pump.
Yeah.
It has like a little like kind of like almost like phone where you can kind of like goes in and kind of track it. So his thing was a little all over. So I was kind of down there trying to dial it in. So I was sitting in the dugout and behind the fence. I couldn't see as well. So I saw him catch it and he was like, comes in. He's like, Dad, did you get video? And I'm like, dude. How
You're like, you did that because I modified your.
Yeah, I'm over here trying to change this. But he had a nice hit, man. He's got a good swing, and
that's good, dude.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I told him he was like because the coach, he didn't play on this team last year, and a bunch of the other kids, so the coach knows those guys a little bit better. So, and they just have practiced a few times, so he was a little lower, like towards the back of the lineup on the hitting. That's awesome. And I told him, I was like, hey, dude, here's the deal: just keep crushing the ball, and they'll move you up like they did last year. Yeah, you know, he just came out, and every time he'd go up, he got a base hit every single time he walked out last year. And I was like, this other guy, like they don't know you that well, right? He's a new coach. Just keep crushing the ball. Yeah. And you know what? Just like last year, all of a sudden you were batting third, and you went from like bottom to the top. Yeah. Just keep being consistent.
So he loves baseball.
He likes baseball. So and then
Jameson's playing ball.
She's playing basketball.
That's cool.
She has 4 games on Saturday. So she had basketball practice. So last night,
I don't miss those days, bro.
Killy had
it's the ride-up pass.
She had riding. So Kate had to trailer her pony over, and she rode Western. Oof. And then I dropped Jamie at basketball, and then I took Cash to his baseball game, and then Kate picked her up from basketball.
You're in it.
And then she came home, and then I got Cashy home. Dude, they played from 6 to 8. Oof. We got done at 8:15 last night.
And then you have to come home and eat. It's the worst.
Yeah. And then
and that's Sunday.
Yeah. Well, then today I'll have time to if he wants to go to Jits, I'll take him. If he doesn't go, I'll go to Jits.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's.
I was gonna ping you yesterday for St. Patty's. I was like, I was not in a very celebratory mood with the whole, because, you know, on top of that, not to add a little bit more tragedy to this, but David's brother passed away a month and a half ago from a heart attack. And I was telling Liz that I kind of feel responsible for Jack, his son, because Jack's Logan's age. Oh, so he has no man in his life. So I was like, I want to step up, and I owe it to David and to Jack. He needs a sounding board, you know. Wow. So I was just not at a dark place, because I was very happy of everything we kind of did together and all the stuff we accomplished. It was like, we are called to a higher calling, and it's up to us to answer the call. And same thing with your kids, you know, you're like, you got to show up and you got to be there. It's a fucking pain in the ass to drive them everywhere. But then they'll be driving, and then you're like, can I go? No.
Well, then, you know, like it's kind of like, you know, young parents. So I'm supposed to go out on, in April, we're going to go out and do Mark Bell's podcast. And I'm going to take Victor Philippe and
nice.
Arash with me.
Where's he at?
He's in Sacramento.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm going to take them out because Nsima, who's Mark's co-host, is a big Jits guy.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So he came out and trained. And so we're going to go out there. We're going to train a little bit. And Mark wanted to do a few podcasts. He wants to do like one with he and I. He wants to do one with them and just do a bunch of content. And I was like, cool. So we're going to go. And then I'm supposed to do Dave Tate's Table Talk sometime in April or May. He wanted us to do it last month, but I'm a little busy. So I'm going to try to do it then. But you know, he had a deal where he was training for powerlifting, and you know, they had you know, young babies, and like the kids were crying in the night, and so he went and slept in a different part of the house, and just basically like avoided it because he didn't want to mess up his sleep. So he like talked about like, I feel kind of like now as an adult, like I missed out on something, and I was like, yeah, damn right you did. So you know, people make the best decision they can with the information that they have at that moment. So, I mean, like whenever people get into this, and we get a lot within the Discord, new parents, you know, this, and I'm like, hey, dude, this isn't forever.
Right.
And it's a rite of passage.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. As awful it is, you're going to be like, especially with twins, you're going to be up at 3 a.m. with kids crying and this and going through the whole thing. And you know what? Like one day when all of a sudden you're watching them drive away and you're like, I remember holding you and you wouldn't go to sleep. And, you know, did it suck? Yeah. Do you want to go back in time and do it? No. But it's part of a rite of passage. So same thing with like, you know, driving them and taking here, like, you know, it's just part of the deal. And
just
you know, it's not forever.
Watching Enrique get married on Friday, because obviously I saw his dad give a speech. Kelsey's dad gave a speech. And I was just like, dude, it's just tears and tears. Because It's now they're further ahead of me. Like that's the next one. You give them away. It's like now they're going to college. Great. Oh, you're kind of sad, but you're like, man, getting married. It's just now they're out there. There were years for a little bit, but that's about it. So hopefully we make good memories.
Yeah.
For them to rely on.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it, Mr. Shaw. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. Long time coming. Stop by anytime. Happy to have you.
Awesome. I appreciate you guys.
Cool.
Love you, man.
See you. Hey there, Power Athlete Nation. Big shout out to all the heavy hitters who stuck around till the final whistle. If you've been soaking in the knowledge bombs and epic tales we've been dropping for free, here's your chance to be a game changer. Swing by klfi.com/powerathlete and toss a few bucks our way to keep the podcast fueled and firing on all cylinders. That's ko-fi.com/powerathlete. Your support makes a difference. See ya.